there, Senators, and welcome back to Star Wars Democracy. Boy, was that an episode last night. We're going to be talking about episode 5 and everything Star Wars. I got my good friend Journeyman here with me. How are you doing, Journeyman?
Great after that episode.
Yeah. The crazy thing about that episode, so if people were here last week, they'll remember me saying that I watched episode 4 4 times. So, guess how many times I've watched episode 5?
4 times.
No, only once. Surprise.
Oh,
All the way through. I've seen, obviously, went back and watched like uh, a few clips of the Anakin and Ahsoka scenes, but straight through, I've only seen it one time. So, pardon me if my memory is a little bit rusty,
hmm
but I'm pretty sure I remember everything about that episode. So, I think we'll be perfectly fine. Senator SB's in the chat. Good to see you, SB. Long time no see. Says 5. Uh, but it's just the ones. It was just the one. But over the weekend, I'll be sure to get in a few more viewings, I'm sure. So should we just jump right into it? Like, just start
I,
talking
I,
about
yeah,
anything and everything. So let's just start with this, I guess. Let's talk about the destiny and the lesson that Ahsoka learned. So I released a video today. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it.
I
Did
gotta
you?
watch it. Yes,
Okay. So you and I talked a lot last night after the episode about what the heck was the actual destiny? What was Ahsoka supposed to learn inside the world between worlds with Anakin? Because my first viewing, like you, and I'll let you speak for yourself here in a second, I didn't feel like I had a really good understanding of what Ahsoka's lesson was in that episode. But after viewing it a second time and specifically focusing on those scenes uh, where she is in the world between worlds and the flashbacks and whatnot, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp at what the lesson is supposed to be now. And even I think from like I still everything that I put in my video I still believe is true, but I think there's some I've watched other people's videos and opinions on it as well, and I think for the most part everyone's kind of in agreement on what it is, but I think some people have some different perspectives on it as well. But what did you think? I know that you really struggled with the episode at first, surprisingly.
so yes. Uh, First, I think we should say our ratings for what it is because then it'll inform what why we gave it this and why at least I'm struggling with it. So my rating for the thing, and I'll be perfectly honest, is at first, my first viewing of it, before me and you went and actually watched the scenes of
Right.
specifically Anakin and Ahsoka for the lesson, was honestly a 5. And I'm being
5 out of 10,
honest,
ladies and gentlemen.
5 out of 10. The reason is because I not, and I still think this is true and what my ultimate rating will be for the thing, but my first viewing was a 5 out of 10. The reason was is because I thought it was going to be a lot more emotional, and my like it the dialogue and the emotion was just not there for me necessarily. So I didn't like that aspect of it. Also, the lesson, like you're talking about, was very confusing. I thought it was going to be something different. My expectations were different for what the lesson was supposed could be or what the lesson should be
Mm-hmm.
and what I got out of it. And it was very confusing because I feel like she didn't earn when I watched it for the first time, I feel like she didn't I feel like she shouldn't have got Ahsoka the White just yet, or she hadn't had earned it that much. But the more I understand it, the more I like the episode. So my ultimate rating for after understanding it is a 9,
Okay.
and still strictly for the emotional aspect. I feel like it could have been the dialogue and the emotion could have been better. But after understanding the lesson, because the lesson was the big thing, I didn't undertake I didn't understand about it at first. That
Mm-hmm.
was why it was at a 5. It was a good episode. It was fine. I wouldn't say it was great necessarily from my standpoint. Like I wasn't really vibing with it, but after understanding the lesson, it took it all the way up to a 9.
Yeah,
So that's my ultimate rating for it.
yeah. I would say I am at a 10 out of 10 personally, just because we got so many good things out of it.
We did.
And not saying, I mean, obviously, you can have whatever rating you want. You're a senator of the channel, just like everybody else. A 10 out of 10 for me. Um, the whole time, I was honestly, and I may have mentioned this last week, the CGI and the de aging of I'm trying to say Anakin, Hayden and Anakin put
Hayden.
together.
Yeah.
The CGI and de aging of Hayden as Anakin, I struggled with at first last week. I felt like everybody else liked the de aging last week. And the more I looked at it, I was like, okay. But this week they went all out on that budget, because I honestly could not tell the difference between
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith Anakin and this Anakin. And so his performance really, like, it was amazing to see the flickering between Vader and Anakin, him holding
Hmm.
that red lightsaber. And
I think uh,
when it comes down to understanding what the lesson was, like you said, it really does elevate the score for me. Not to mention that
mhm.
we also got Ahsoka the White, which is something that I've been really looking forward to. I mean, if you've been a senator of the channel for even a little bit, you know that I've been looking forward to and speculating about Ahsoka the White. Is it as grandiose as I thought it was going to be? No,
Yes.
but I told you, just like I told everybody else, you have to temper expectations, because with Star Wars, we generally go overboard. And yes, sometimes we deliver. And a lot of times with Dave Filoni, he delivers and he does go overboard. I mean, there's no reason we need to do. I shouldn't say no reason. We didn't deserve to see Hayden in this show at all, even though it
No.
makes sense for his story. Not let alone did we deserve to see Hayden wield a red lightsaber with his
Hmm.
Anakin lightsaber with a red uh, glow. His revenge, like, we got so much, the flickering, like I said, between Vader, like we got to see Vader, like we
It
didn't
was
deserve any of
very
that. He went overboard on things that he went overboard on, and then the things that
yes.
he didn't go overboard on, like Ahsoka the White. Because in my mind, I always envisioned this like magical, like mystical, like, I don't even know how to describe it. I talk about it in my speculation videos all the time, but like bestowance of the white robes and the staff. And
Yes.
looking back at it, like, yes, that would be cool, but honestly, it makes more practical sense of like, oh, she just comes out and she gets a white cloak, and that's the end. Like, there's, it doesn't really make. I think what we're all wanting is some like magical transformation of Ahsoka, and I just don't think normal fans would understand it. But pause before your thoughts, because you're actually not alone. I don't know if you can see the chat, but SB is actually on the same page with you here. SB says, "See, that's my complaint about that episode. I think we needed a very overt dialogue from Anakin that spells out what that lesson was supposed to be, especially for the casuals who were lost." Follows up and says, 5 out of 10. I loved Anakin. I loved the flashbacks, but not using Ashley Eckstein was a big failure. And I also thought things were a bit too vague and unclear.
I wouldn't say not using Ashley Eckstein as a big failure. I think it's fine. I think it's the lesson and the unvague nature about the lesson that makes this episode so hard to understand.
Yeah, it's
Once
very, but
once
it's,
you once once you understand it and have an appreciation for it, it makes a lot more sense. And we'll kind of get into it here in a second.
yeah.
But I took something away from the sequels that I thought applies to the lesson that I thought would never come about, but it makes a lot of sense why.
SB follows up going along those same lines, uh, and says, and yes, I'm struggling with this whole Ahsoka the White thing. Nothing I saw in that episode showed me why Ahsoka should ascend to this
Yes.
mythical Ahsoka the White. Tony's
Hey,
in the chat
sort
as well. Senator Tony, thank you for being here. He's going to be here off and on. So
I think so. For the white robes, let's just talk about the white robes for a second before we actually get into the lesson. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So the white robes, I felt like we wanted, like you said, this kind of magical, mystical elevation of some sort. Like
Yeah.
I think we wanted Anakin. If we're all being honest, we wanted Anakin to be the one to say, "Okay, you have now surpassed this lesson." Here in the episode, he says, "I'm here to finish your training." Right after that lesson is over, we kind of want Anakin to be like, "You." And at least in my mind, here's what I wanted. I wanted Anakin to be like, "Here's the lesson. You got through the lesson. Now you are finally ready to take on the mantle of being a Jedi or something of that nature, some grandiose dialogue."
Hmm.
And he gives her the robes. It's it's like one final thing of a master to an apprentice sort of thing. Like it's
Hmm.
the final step. That's what I sort of wanted out of it. And I felt like we didn't get that. Although when we get into the lesson, she did conquer what she was going to, but I do think it's just weird that she just gets the robes. That's what I find unappealing about it, I guess.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm with you. Like again, I've been the one. Like I owe most of my audience here on YouTube to Ahsoka the White. A lot of my videos were surrounded around Ahsoka the White. Is she a protector of the world between worlds? Does Anakin give her the white robes and staff and bestow it upon her as a true Jedi Knight, etc., etc.? And was I disappointed at first? Yes. Like because I had conjured up all these things in my mind. But when you really take a step back, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to convince you, and maybe this is me just making sense of it all in my head, but if you really take a step back, and we're going to kind of get into the destiny and the lesson point
Hmm.
portion here, what she really did become was the warrior that she
Yeah.
realized the warrior that she was supposed to be. And that
Yes.
I told you last night too that Rosario herself has said that the interesting part about Ahsoka in this show, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that we see
Hmm.
her undergo different levels of development. We see
Hmm.
her go from Ahsoka the Grey, this very like honestly kind of like depressed character. Like this is not the Ahsoka that we know and love at all.
Hmm.
We see her go from Ahsoka the Grey, who's very cold and very like kind of harsh, I think is how we were describing her at the beginning of in these streams, towards Sabine, and we see her develop inside the world between worlds. And I do believe that the lesson is left intentionally vague on purpose. I mean, it's Dave freaking Filoni. Like, if he needed to
Yeah.
explain it, he would have explained it. But he
Yeah.
does this all the time. He leaves all of these things vague for fans to be able to speculate about. I just worry if this one was too vague. But we see her go and take another leap in character development, and I don't think it's necessarily like I think the answer could be as simple as two things. One, it's just visual imagery to show the audience that she has developed as a character. Like
Yes.
you go from the gray to the white, and it doesn't have to be some huge transformation. Uh,
Yes.
and I think the second piece to that is it's as simple as okay, she she was thrown into the water. Her outfit is just, I guess, soaking wet at this point. Maybe that's the change of clothes that she had on board, and that's essentially what her new appearance is going to be. But as the audience, we see it as, oh, she has developed from this to this. And in my mind, if you piece everything together, you see
Yeah.
that she's learned the destiny, uh, basically finding the will to live and to carry on as a warrior that is crafting her own legacy.
Hmm.
That is Ahsoka the White to me. And I think it will help us more. I mean, obviously, I don't think she's just going to change clothes and go right back to her old appearance. We're going to see
Yeah.
Ahsoka the White play out in the next couple episodes. So I really think we need to give it to the end of the season to see
Oh yeah, for
what
sure.
actually
Yeah.
happens. But what are your quick thoughts here? And then I'll get to back to some of the comments.
So I think that's right. I mean, you can get into the comments, and then I think we should get into the lesson. By the way, do you have that piece of paper that you wrote and we were trying to figure out the
I got
lesson?
it all up in here.
Okay,
We'll figure it out. We'll
because
keep it together.
yeah, but
Let's
it
see.
made sense.
Yeah. Senator Tony says, I think Dave wanted this to be a realist. Let me back up. I think Dave wanted this to be a realistic and not mystical. She had to discover this on her own, just like anyone would in real life. I would agree. I think that, again, we had conjured up, at least I had conjured up some huge, monumentous transformation, transfiguration, and it's just as simple as she unlocked something about herself that she didn't know was in her. Um,
Yes,
and then Senator Kathleen, good to see you, Kathleen. I think they should have used an older Ahsoka for Mandalore. I agree with you there. She was almost 20 by then. It would have shown how long she has struggled with her inner struggle between about being a Jedi then a warrior. Yeah, I would agree. I was not. I was okay with the Ahsoka that we saw on. I guess it was Ryloth, but I do think they should have used an older actress for the Siege of Mandalore scene. I really do.
I say slightly older. Yes,
Yeah.
because although she did look good, she did look good in the Clone Wars armor, like what she wore on Mandalore. Yes, I it was
Well,
good, but
and,
I feel
and
like it could have been a little older.
my gripe about it is you even see the animation, you even see Ahsoka grow up in the Clone Wars, and her animation style
Yes,
even change. And so I think to
yeah,
use the same appearance was kind of like it didn't fit that because you do see her change from the Siege of Mandalore to that first scene. There is some development in the character style there.
yeah.
Senator Tony says, as a 12-year-old, we need to learn from our mistakes and go forward, not dwell on the past. The white clothing is showing us her feelings now. And yes, it is very much part of the lesson to get over your past. Let the past die, as Kylo says. But we'll get into the lesson a little bit more in a little bit. SB says, Cat Spas, I agree. She looked too young for the Mandalore scene. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of consensus about that. Senator Tony says, remember that in Christian baptism, we are dressed and emerge from the water in white, not literally, but metaphorically. Yes. So I think that there's the symbolism of the water too. In fact, I think that that has been something that's been on Dave Filoni's mind for a long time. I saw some concept art of uh, it's this. I think they're like playing cards or like a deck of cards or something that he created. It's the same deck of cards that we see Ahsoka go back into the world between worlds. So I'm not sure exactly what that means. But one of the cards does show her being immersed in water. So I think that he has had that planned for a really long time. And in that sense, I think even that symmetry helps me get over it as like the symbolism, like Tony's saying here, similar to a baptism. She's being her old self was being buried, and then obviously she's not going to come out of the water with white robes and a staff, so she's got
Right.
to go dry off and get the white robes essentially. Um,
Yeah.
so from that sense, the metaphor is good. Tony agrees with there needing to be another actor. Kathleen
But in
says,
that sense, sorry, but in that sense of the Christian baptism, like that is a big symbolic thing. So in
yes.
that sense, if we're looking at it through that lens, like that is the big euphoric thing of she has died to her old self and she is quote unquote reborn again, you know?
Well, and well, okay. Senator Kathleen says wearing white shows she made peace with the shadowed warrior in herself. Yeah, I would agree with you there, Kathleen. So that's a big thing here. I think it's important to point out that I do believe that Ahsoka died. At least
Yes.
a part of her did die, or she was nearing death.
Yeah.
And Anakin's lesson was fight to live. You got to fight.
Yes.
You have to find the will to keep on going.
Hmm.
And to let your past. Don't think about. You cannot dwell on the past. The past is the past. You have to find the will to fight, keep on living, and do what you were meant to go do. That was the lesson in a summary. And I think she did die. And I think in a very literal but also metaphorical sense, her old self died, and her we are seeing a Ahsoka that we have never got to see before, and I think that that's important to note.
I agree. I mean,
Yeah. So Senator Tony says Dave is also trying to change our perspective of Ahsoka to one that is a warrior archetype going forward, something Dave has in store for us. Yeah, I think we're just getting started with Ahsoka, because he really is taking Ahsoka on a character arc here that I don't know a lot of us actually expected. Because I think that, I mean, obviously we're going, like I said, from Ahsoka the Grey, this very, like, honestly depressed, kind of harsh, kind of cold Ahsoka, who's really just dealing with the reality of her life as a warrior who believes that her legacy is one of death and destruction. I mean, that's what she says, and that's what Balin tells her. That's what she believes. And Anakin says, no, you're more than that because I'm more than that. And that can mean a whole host of things.
yeah.
But that's what I think she cannot get over, or could not get over, because she has now, the fact that her legacy is tied up in so much death and destruction, not only through the Clone Wars, but with Anakin's legacy as well.
And I think that's what the hard thing for me, just giving my little take on it of what the lesson actually means. So going through it, the lesson was, like you said, to keep fighting, no matter what the past held. In a summary, just to keep on fighting. She says, like you said, her past is one of death and destruction. Anakin says, "I am. You are more because I am more."
Mm-hmm.
The reason that she says, and he also says, like, is that the whole point of Anakin's lesson was to fight. The whole point of his lesson was for him to Ahsoka having to fight Anakin in Anakin form, not in
Yeah.
Darth Vader form, because there is a difference between her fighting on Malachor with the half face and Anakin saying Ahsoka, because that's still Vader trying to tease her at that point. But Anakin being full blown in Anakin gear in
Mm-hmm.
when they left and they departed before the Siege of Mandalore and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Before they left, that was the point of the whole fight, is to fight me, get over the past, conquer the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kylo says, let the past die. She has to fight Anakin to get over this.
Yeah.
She has been running from it, and she has been scared of it for so long. She has finally now conquered what she has never been able to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever we see Ahsoka and Vader, she's always afraid. She's always shocked. She's always mystified at what he has become. Fighting him finally cured that, and that she has finally set aside a path to where I may have a direct link to Anakin, and my legacy is tied, but I can change that. And that's why we see Ahsoka have the Sith eyes, like you said in the video, like what we think are Sith eyes. She goes to strike Anakin and
Mm-hmm.
cuts him, wants to cut him down, but she doesn't, and says, just like Luke did, she says, "I am not going to do this." Basically,
Mm-hmm.
like, I choose to live. Like, I'm going to keep on fighting. You have taught me, basically, and like I know I understand the lesson now, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
he also says, like, that's why he says incorrect, and I'm like, okay, that's weird
Mm-hmm.
dialogue, but I'm start. He says it because it's true. Like, no, I want you to fight me,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the whole point of it.
Yeah, and one thing, I think it was in Theory's video that I really like, and I agree with you. I think just as much as the lesson was about teaching Ahsoka to become that warrior that she needs to be, and to continue to fight, find the will to live and to fight another day.
Hmm.
That was the overall lesson. But I 100% agree with you that also folded into that lesson was to get over what Anakin had become, and to realize that her legacy is not like his, that she is tied to his legacy, but the whole point was to get over the past and realize that just because you fight, just because you are a warrior, does not mean that you're going to turn into what Anakin became.
Yeah.
His destiny was his own destiny. You have your own destiny.
Yes.
That was also folded in there.
And also
let me wrap
sorry,
this up
go
really
ahead.
quick.
Yeah.
Because Theory said something cool too, because that was part of the lesson. But I think Theory's perspective on it was the reason why he starts off as her master, Anakin. She starts as, like you said, the Jedi of the Siege of Mandalore, right before the Siege of Mandalore, Anakin. And he tries to teach her the lesson, and she doesn't get it.
Yep.
She's like, "I'm not going to fight you." He's like, "I've heard that before," and like it's all kind of cheery and stuff. And then throughout the duration of those flashbacks, she still isn't going to get it. And like you said, he says, "I told you, you're either going to live or die." And she goes, "No," and he goes, "Incorrect." And Theory's perspective on that, I don't know if you saw that, was he purposefully turned into Vader dark side to kind of poke and prod at her to bring the Ahsoka out that needed to come out. I don't think that she would have learned the lesson from light side Anakin. I think she had to learn the lesson from dark side Anakin.
Yeah, she had to face Anakin as Vader when basically in Revenge of the Sith. That's the Anakin that she knew, and that's the Anakin that she like got to really know.
Yeah.
So for her to have that piece of like, I have faced you as Vader, I sort of defeated you at that point on Malachor, sort of. But now to finally have the piece of its full circle of I'm actually facing Vader as Anakin.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big, like, that's the full conquering of the past, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, and I agree. Like, and that kind of, so I have a theory, and maybe I'm wrong on this. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the scene where he turns into Vader and walking through the smoke and all that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's where we were supposed to get Mustafar. If they cut it, I feel like that's what we were supposed to get.
Maybe. Yeah.
And that's my that's just my prediction of what
Yeah.
it was supposed to be. But
it very well could have been. It very well could have been.
I also think that he Theory does have a good point. He kind of turned into Vader for a reason. Because he also says at the end before he leaves, it's like there's still hope for you yet. Which
Mm-hmm.
means there's still something to come, I feel like. Like the lesson was over, but yeah, he was happy that she finally understood.
Well,
Like
I certainly don't think this was the end of Anakin. I've heard rumblings, and I believe that we will see Anakin in some way, shape, or form again in the Ahsoka series. I do believe that. I won't be disappointed if we don't, but
no.
I will be happy if we get to see more, and I do think that we might see more. So
Okay,
yeah.
But that just poked my ears up because I went back and we were watching it, and after we got through talking, I went back and watched it again, and I'm like, that's weird that he says there is still hope for you yet. So something else is going to happen that makes another decision for her, is what I'm thinking, because there's still probably one not final thing, because the final lesson was that, but like a help of some sort from him that's going to pop up, and that was just my theory on it. But
yeah,
once I understood the lesson, it made a lot more sense. I'm happy with the episode. I'm glad that we got Clone.
mm-hmm.
I'm glad we got him in Clone Wars armor. We had all wanted that.
Yeah,
like live action Clone Wars, and
yeah,
I love it. He's just like, I love the line, "We're in the Clone Wars." Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's like saying what all the audience is thinking.
Well,
like,
it was such a great performance by Hayden too, because he really captured that he captures the Anakin from the prequel movies, Revenge of the Sith, but he also captures that Anakin from the Clone War. Like that was very much a Matt Lanter like
Yes.
Anakin animation style, and he captures it perfectly. So brilliant performance by him. Let's get to a few things in the chat here. So Tony, I
Hmm.
see your question about Luke. I want to come back to that, and I got to save a lot of time for it because I think we're going to go on a complete. We're going to go down the rabbit hole, and I want to save that for the end. So I'll come back to your comment there, Tony. And Kathleen says, "Ooh, good question. Yeah, it is a good question." SB says, I hope seeing the complete 8 episodes makes me enjoy the series more. I'm meh about some of the things Dave is doing. I don't need a Gandalf wannabe. I like Jedi. Let's get the Jedi back and not by Rey. I agree with you, SB, there. And I'm going to pull up Senator Kathleen's comment here because I think this is my theory of it all. I do think that we're seeing a Gandalf style character with Ahsoka, but I don't think that we're going to get this Ahsoka the White with the staff. I think that that's kind of that idea has been kind of thrown away. Maybe I do
Yeah.
think, and my theory is SP. I don't know if you've seen my video, but my theory is that this Ahsoka the White will recreate a Jedi in the new galaxy, and unfortunately, we'll be left with probably Rey and the galaxy that we know. But that's just my theory. I don't know if you can get behind that of Ahsoka creating her own Jedi Order in this new galaxy, but uh, that's what I'm thinking. SB says, Cat Spas, I hope so. The staff seems totally out of place in Star Wars. So, like I said, I don't even know if you're going to get the staff. If we do get the staff, it'll probably be just something that we see maybe like once. Um, like almost maybe like in the ending of the season, like as we see Ahsoka, like perhaps she's being left in the new galaxy or wherever. We just see the camera pan away. Maybe
And
she
it
has
has a
that
staff
staff,
in the back.
and maybe we never see the staff again. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that would be brilliant because then fans are going to go wild, like, "Oh, she has the staff, she has the staff," and then, but it's just a staff, guys. Like, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's just like
I mean,
that.
as far as we know,
I mean,
we
as far
don't.
as we know, but I think that's what it's going to be, right? Like, it's just a
Yeah.
staff with a circle on the top.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm that person. I'm like, oh, it opens the world between worlds. Oh, it opens portals. It's like Dave's like, it's just a staff.
It's just a staff, guys.
It's
It's
like,
just a walking stick. That's
yeah,
all.
like she needed it to walk up the mountain you see her on. That's about it. She's about to just throw it off the cliff. Like that's probably what it's gonna be. So let's not get too crazy. Let's not get too crazy.
Yeah.
A cat spot says maybe more Anakin at the very end of the series, and lessons will continue into series 2. I really hope we get a season 2, and I do think that we will see Anakin again. I just have a feeling. Follows up and says, "Yeah, SB, that staff threw me off. Also, unless you can take it apart and make 2 lightsabers, or I mean, if she can use it as a way to get into the world between worlds, I think that would be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, it I've made a ton of videos about it. Go on my channel. One of the videos is Ahsoka, the protector of the world between worlds, or something like that. I mean, that staff is pretty darn close looking to the mural that we see with the Mortis gods, and when everything lines up, you see like little lines with circles at the end of the lines, and it looks just like the staff. So I do think it could be like some kind of relic that will help her have some type of power. But then again, I'm not even really convinced, SB, that we're even going to see that. So I wouldn't
It's
worry
also
about
interesting that the world between worlds, what we got, there was no portals like in the Rebels episode. Like I understand it. Like the the form of a world between worlds is different for everyone and who anyone who encounters it. But I feel like that's weird that we didn't see like a portal or something
it.
where she could walk into or out of, or if that's the case. Like we just got a long strip of blue, basically. That's what
Yeah,
we've been seeing.
yeah, it was a little bit different. SP says democracy. I can see her being left in the other galaxy to create a new Jedi Order. Disney needs an unspoiled galaxy, and as long as they don't do anything with it until KK is gone, there's hope. I mean, I get the feeling that she's going to be around a while, especially now that Ahsoka's doing so well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But it's just also a reminder that there is good under Kathleen Kennedy and there is bad. Like, you can't link all the bad to her necessarily. You can link all the good to Dave Filoni, but it's like two things can be true at once, right? All the good can be linked to Dave Filoni, but not all the bad is necessarily linked to Kathleen. That's just my opinion on it. I'm not going to go. We're not going to talk about that really anymore. Senator Tony says, in the current behind-the-scenes video on Disney Plus, Dave shows the Ahsoka in white, dressed in dark brown, holding that same staff. So yeah, it is possible that you can see, we could see the staff. And by the way, everyone, Senator Tony is a senator of the channel. He helps bring these streams to life. If you want to support me as a content creator and support these streams and the videos that I'm doing, hit that join button. Inquire about becoming a senator of the channel. You get access to like the loyalty badge that you see next to Tony's name. In about a few weeks, his loyalty badge will switch to red, showing that he's been a senator of the channel for a year. You also get access to custom emojis that you can use in the chat. Tony, I've never seen you use a custom emoji. You'll have to throw in an emoji for us so you can show everyone what those emojis look like. What else? Priority reply to comments. I try to respond to all the comments anyway, but I'll make sure to prioritize the comments on my videos for my members. And then also members only live streams. Once we get a few more members, we'll start kicking those up, and we'll start doing that. Also, you have the ability to do super chats. Also, a fantastic way to support me and what I'm doing over here. We have yet to receive a super chat, so if you want to be the first one to send in a little donation, that would really help me out, and I would really appreciate it. Let's see here. SB says, "I will hate her enough for all of us." Oh, SB, I miss you being here. It's fun. It's good to have you back. Kathleen says, I think they contractually have to put KK's name on the stuff. I'm pretty sure she had no hand in Ahsoka. I mean, she is the president, so yeah.
Yeah,
her name's labeled all over everything. You see what I mean, though, people? I'm saying that under Kathleen Kennedy's rule and reign of Lucasfilm, you've had both good and bad. So I don't think it's necessarily a direct link to her. But I do think that if you had someone like Dave Filoni, I never think Dave Filoni will become Lucasfilm president. Please don't throw that out there. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
No.
But if you had someone like him, I do believe you could have all good Star Wars. I'm just saying that Kathleen Kennedy is linked to both good and bad Star Wars.
Or at least have a business person that's running with Dave and saying, you can do the creative stuff and let me do the business side.
Yeah. SP says the Emperor had a reign as well. Just say. I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, I have to go back to Tony's comment here because I wanted to bring this up to you. Were you okay? So for those who are in the chat, I think most of you or some of you are in this. I have a Discord. I'll go ahead. I'm going to post the link to the Discord in the description of this video. I always forget to do that. But make sure you come join that Discord. So after this video, you can find that link there. I also may post it on the community tab as well, so that you can go find it. Anyway, not in my Discord, but I was in a Guy Who Loves Star Wars Discord, Mike's Discord today. And this is all I said. Okay, I said it in the spoiler zone. I said, okay, so did Dave just forget about the episode he directed in the Book of Boba Fett with Luke and Ahsoka? Like, did he just forget about it? And Tony asked here, Senator Tony says, this raises the $42,000 question. I'm not sure why it's 42,000. That's very oddly specific, unless I'm missing something here. $42,000 question. What form will Ahsoka be in when we last see with the Luke in Book of Boba Fett? That is the question, and I wanted to ask you that, and I feel like we're going to go down the rabbit hole. And
funny enough,
this is going to be mind-bending. Did you even see any of the conversation I was having with Mike and everybody in his Discord?
So funny enough, I actually I was while I was eating dinner, I was like, I had that same exact thought. I'm like, so are they just gonna? And my direct thought was, so are they just gonna go back and CGI if this is if what we see happen is after the Ahsoka show, like what it's supposed to be?
Hmm.
Are they just gonna go CGI her robes in? Because if that's the case, I mean that'd be the cheapest way to do it. But yeah, I was having that same exact question because if
Okay,
that's
so
truly
you're
after,
equally as confused as I am because I'm like, I think he
yes.
forgot that he directed an episode and that Ahsoka's in that episode because you can't tell me that Ahsoka. I went back and watched the scenes today because I was so confused. Like we literally we spent probably 30 to 45 minutes in his Discord just typing things out of way, and at the very end of it, nobody had an answer for this because you go and watch that episode, and Ahsoka is vastly different than the Ahsoka that we see at the beginning of this show. And my understanding of the timeline of everything was after Ahsoka bests and defeats Morgan Elsbeth on Corvus,
Hmm.
she figures out the location to the map. Why would she wait so long to go find the map? She wouldn't. She would go find the map. So my impression was after she gives Morgan to the New Republic, which is
Hmm.
where Balin and Shin come and break her out, Ahsoka
Hmm.
was already headed. So in my mind, this is taking place a few days after the events of The Mandalorian season 2. And if that's the case, then we're just a
Hmm.
few days past that, and Ahsoka's in the mouth of a whale headed to a new galaxy. So when the heck does she meet Luke?
I don't know. That is the question. I'm really confused on that because I like I said, I literally thought about that today, and I'm like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Are they just gonna go CGI her cloaks on if that's the case?
I'm
Like,
not sure because I'll just say this.
I
I think there's half
I
a possibility that this is just speculation. I don't know if Ahsoka is going to make it back to our galaxy, at least not for a while. I think that when
Mhm.
she goes, I think she's going
Mhm.
to go to stay. That doesn't mean Ezra, Sabine, I do think Thrawn's going to make it back, but I think she might stay. And if she does stay, that really puts the continuity at kind of risk because how then does she come across? How when does she meet Luke? She's not dressed in her white robes, and I see what Kathleen is saying here. They don't wear robes all the time, so I think they can get away with it. But she also had like the little like on her wrists, they were white instead of gray. Like there was other
Mhm.
parts of her appearance, even the inner part, like not the actual cloak, but whatever she was wearing was white
Yeah,
and not gray. So if
like
they're
the
going,
corset or something, whatever like
yeah,
that.
so if they're going to keep up the same character appearance, then I don't think that I don't know. The
Unless
only theory that we could come up with, and it does not make sense to me, is that if before she goes to find the map, she goes and finds Luke, drops by and says hi to Luke, and then she goes and finds the map. But in that case,
that's
it would almost seem like then, okay, so if that's true, then we see the Mandalorian or we see Luke with Grogu on the planet. And if that's within only a few days, that means Grogu and the Mandalorian were only separated for a few days, maybe a few weeks.
yeah.
That doesn't seem likely. My impression was that that was a. It may have not been 2 years like everybody thought John Favreau said, but it was definitely more than a few days or a few weeks. It was definitely months,
Yeah.
if not a year to 2 years. So I
Yeah.
don't know, and I'm gonna make a video about it. It'll be my next video, so you're getting a little preview of my thoughts. But well, you're actually not because I don't have any thoughts. I mean, I have thoughts, but I don't have any. I don't have any like concrete theories because I'm like I don't. I literally don't know.
it's literally a video saying, Dave, please explain this.
Seriously, like literally, if we were, I had Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars, which go give him a subscribe and a follow if you haven't already. But I was in there talking to him and a few of his people in his Discord, and I'm like, I threw that out there, and then I caused like the whole Discord to erupt, and I'm like, I just asked a question. I was like, did he forget that he put Ahsoka in that episode? Because she literally is not the same. Go and watch. I challenge you after this stream or whenever you have time. Go and watch that episode, or at least the scene between Luke and
No,
Ahsoka. It's only a
I
few minutes.
remember it.
She's,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you, you don't remember it because you go back and she's a completely different character than we see. Like she reminds me more of the Ahsoka the White, but she's a completely different character than Ahsoka the Gray. And so it would almost seem as if the Book of Boba takes place after all of these events. But she's not in her white robe. So I don't know. You might, I mean, I thought the same thing you did. I'm like, are they going to actually go back in and like CGI like robes to make her appearance, the continuity of her appearance match? But I don't know.
No, that wouldn't make sense. No, they wouldn't do that, right? Because no, that wouldn't make sense because it's Grogu. It wouldn't be. There would be no way that she would go back to Peridia or whatever the other galaxy is just to come back for that scene. That makes no
Kathleen
sense. Yeah.
says Ahsoka knows how to ride the whale, so I think she'll be able to go back and forth, and that's true. She might be able to go back and forth.
And that's what I was about to say. Like, maybe that scene takes place after this Ahsoka show, but then I'm like, but you have the continuity with Grogu. So I'm like, did she literally go there? What John is saying, 2 years. Let's just take it for what it is, right? 2 years that goes by, and she's all the way in the other galaxy. 2 years, and she goes back just to film, quote unquote, film. We get that scene, and then we go, and then she just goes back, possibly.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
I don't.
maybe. I mean, honestly, like I kind of feel like that's what it might be. Tony says
And
the
then
Cetos near Mandalore. Grogu saw the Purgles. I actually do think that Cetos is near Mandalore, Tony. I could be wrong, but if you look up a map, I do believe they're very close. And then also brings up a good point here and says Luke says,
yeah, that's what I'm.
Ahsoka, "Well, I see you again," and she says, I think she says perhaps, or maybe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe yeah, she just doesn't have her white robes on, and maybe she's been in that galaxy for a while. Maybe Anakin is like, hey, like you're gonna come back to this galaxy, but like I need you to go talk to Luke real quick. And she goes back, and then she's like, Luke, I'm Ahsoka. I knew your father. Your father was my master. I'm gonna help you rebuild this Jedi Order, and then I'm being called to go back to this place. But the only problem with that theory then
is Thrawn is already here.
Thrawn is already there, and it doesn't appear that there's any sense of urgency on Luke's part to go fight Thrawn. But the only part that Mike also raised was, yes, that is true that she could come back, and we would expect her to have said something about Thrawn to Luke. But also, if that scene takes place after Mando season 2, which we know it does for sure, Ahsoka also knew about Thrawn at that point. But maybe, I guess Thrawn wasn't in the galaxy, so maybe she talks about Thrawn to him. But yes, if Thrawn makes it back to the galaxy, we would, and Ahsoka comes back too, it doesn't seem like Luke is in any hurry to gear up for battle against Thrawn, which is the only part that I also have a problem with.
Well, so everyone in the galaxy thinks he's dead. Luke has probably never heard of this person before, Thrawn, right? Mm-hmm. So Ahsoka, if we're going with that, could probably just say, hey, Luke, here's this possibility of this happening. And not that you need to be ready or anything, but just on the off chance that it does, like, would you be sort of ready in this situation? And he's like, sure, yeah, I'll be ready. And then that's what we're probably going to get for, I'm expectations tempered, all right? But
Yeah.
maybe for the Dave movie, that's probably what we're going to. But then again, I don't know, like, if that's
Well,
what it could be.
and I truthfully don't have any idea or what interview it is, but I believe I have heard that Dave Filoni in some interview or some conversation has promised fans that he will show us the first time Ahsoka and Luke meet, which also raises a question: was that the first time that they met on that planet in the Book of Boba Fett, or had they known each other for a long time?
Well, it
Because
seems like
that also raises questions. So
that seems like the the way that they talk, like, "Will I ever see you again?" or and all that, like, it seems very casual, like they've been talking for a while. Not like it's not like just like a, "Hey, drop in," you know, maybe like a couple days and then I'm out of here. Like it seems like at least for a little bit, like a week maybe or something like that, they've like probably been having a conversation about all the adventures or whatever like is going on. So like,
do you think then, like, okay, let's assume that it does happen after everything that we've seen, after she
mhm,
goes to the galaxy, and let's say that she does come back. Do you
sure.
think they will literally like almost CGI the robes in, or do you think they'll just leave it alone?
I mean, that's what I would do. I mean,
But are they
I think
that
you
crucial? Like, are they going to
are they
spend the
that
money and time?
I mean, it is Disney's Star Wars now. Now George Lucas, he would have done he's made so many changes to the originals and CGIing a lot of stuff in that you would say yes, do it. And that's what I if if Dave's involved with it, like you kind of have to like to
Hmm.
keep the continuity going because we know he's making a movie. So like if we're gonna understand it correctly, like it needs to be done correctly. Like go
Yeah,
back and redo it, or not go back and redo it. Just CGI it in. That's the cheapest and most effective way to do it. Just
right.
throw some CGI robes on her and it works.
Call it a day. Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, Dave or George did it frequently and made changes. So it's definitely possible, I guess. I
I
don't know
think
if
he's
Disney
made
will do it
changes
though.
to both the originals and the prequels, if I'm not mis- for
Yeah,
mistaken. But
yeah,
I
he
mean,
has
I don't know why you wouldn't. If you're trying to create a con, a how
continuity.
would I say it? Yeah, if you're trying to create continuity within it and helping fans understand it, yes, we could just explain it. But it'd be a lot better if you said, "Hey, here's when she has the robes," so we know it's during this time frame. Because if you don't do it, I would just as a random fan, I'd still be confused about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I thought it was a very interesting conversation nonetheless.
Oh yeah, no, I don't
So
know. I
well, like I said, I'm gonna make a video about it, and maybe
mhm.
I'll think about it and then give my final prediction or theory as to what I think is going on. But
Yeah,
it does raise a lot of questions, and Dave has some explaining to do at the very
yeah.
least. He has some explaining
At
to
least
do.
there's more questions, which I'm
Yeah,
always good for.
which is always good. Star Wars is all about the questions. You can't do this with Marvel people. You can't do this with Marvel.
No,
Senator Tony says when Ahsoka returns dressed in white, will Luke change his appearance? It's kind of an interesting point. Like he does go from like dark clothing in Return of the Jedi, and then when we see him in it
Last
maybe
Jedi.
even be the flashbacks, the Last Jedi, like the flashbacks with Ben Solo, he has white robes on, not like Ahsoka the White, but he
It's
does,
more or less gray. It's like what she
or like the
just got out
brown.
of. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's
I still
interesting.
think he'll have a lot of black on, but I think
Yeah.
it could be more brown or gray.
Kathleen here says at the end of Mando 3, Thrawn still hasn't returned though, so she probably knows Luke by knowing Leia. That's a really good point, Kathleen. Now I got to
I
bring that up
mean,
to Mike in his Discord too. Be like, by the way, Mike, someone in my stream said by the time we see Mando 3, Thrawn still hasn't returned. At least
I mean, they even name drop Leia basically, right?
they
In
do
this
in the
episode.
episode. Yeah,
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 so that's a really good point. Yeah.
yeah. I'll have to go back and see what's going on there. Um,
The first time Ahsoka and Leia meet, the first time Ahsoka and Luke meet, like that'd be really interesting.
yeah, no, there's so many good, so many good, so many good moments
Point.
of Star Wars left to see, and I think we're just getting started. Like I think we're just getting started with Star Wars, and I think we're just getting started with Ahsoka. So,
Yeah.
um, okay, let's do a quick "I love democracy" statement here, and then we'll give our final thoughts to everything.
I love democracy. I love the Republic.
All right, so in the "I love democracy" segment for tonight, I asked everybody on the community tab, which, if you didn't know, I try to post polls as often as I can over on the community tab on the channel. So make sure you subscribe, head over to the community tab, and cast your vote. So the last I looked, I asked, what rating do you give Ahsoka Episode 5, The Shadow Warrior? I think it was just called Shadow Warrior. A
Mm-hmm.
whopping 78% of senators who voted gave it 5 stars out of 5 stars. And then 14% gave 4 stars, 5% gave 3 stars, and then we had 1% with 2 stars and 1% with 1 star. So, what would you give it? I don't know if you voted, but what would you give it?
4. Just once again,
4.
like it's the emotion wasn't there for me. Like I understand the lesson; it makes it better, but I still needed a grandiose dialogue section where I could understand it clearly because that's what I feel like some of the greatest moments of Star Wars lives. Go back to Twilight of the Apprentice. Go back to um, any other, you know, I mean, this is all opinionated, but go back to any other Star Wars where it make at least gets me emotional. It's very dialogue driven. Like, you know, The Apprentice lives. Like that's an emotional scene. Going back to Twilight of the Apprentice. Vader giving his whole speech and Ahsoka going there. Like I wanted that whole grandiose thing, and I didn't get it. The flashbacks were great. Clone Wars was great. Mandalore was great. I needed some more emotion out of it, and I felt like it was great to see everything, but I needed that little extra pushover, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I know you got to take off. If you need to go
Yeah.
ahead and take off, I'm going to round out the stream so you're not missing anything.
Okay.
Appreciate you being here, sir.
Thanks for
We
letting
don't
me
do
get on
a
again.
stream this weekend. Maybe we'll see you on Monday before the next prediction stream.
Sounds fair. I'll see everyone later.
See ya. All righty. Anyone have any last comments they want to throw in the chat before I take off? I would give the episode 5 stars. And I'm still sitting at that 10 out of 10. Like, I have to say a 10 out of 10 because I put in the video that it was a 10 out of 10. So, and I do think it's a 10 out of 10. Don't get me wrong. But it's like a 9.9999999 rounds up to a 10. I don't know if it was a 10 out of 10 episode. I would consider last week, episode 4, a 10 out of 10 for sure. No questions asked. But for this one, it's a 10 out of 10, but it's like I said, a 9.9999 rounded up to a 10. So, had a lot of fun with you all here tonight. Got a lot of good speculation, and I mean, I feel like between Journeyman and I, you got our honest reaction. Appreciate all the senators who were here. We had SB, Senator Kathleen and Senator Tony were here. Appreciate you all being here. For our verse of the day, it's coming out of Romans 12:2. It says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." If y'all need anything, reach out to me. However you can get a hold of me, you can reach out to me over Twitter. The link to my Twitter is on my channel page in the About section, or I think there's like a link near like the description of the channel. Reach out to me on Discord. Like I said, I'll post the link to the Discord in this description. And any other means of reaching out to me, if y'all need anything and just need to talk, let me know. I'm always here and happy to talk. Kathleen says, "I gave 5 stars and a 10 out of 10. Snippy Snips is back, and Hayden and Anakin." Perfect comment to round it out, I think. Kathleen, appreciate you being here. Like I said, Senator Tony and SB, thank you for being here as well. Make sure you head over if you're interested about becoming a senator of the channel. We're just getting started with things here on the channel. So if you want that loyalty badge, if you want those custom emojis, if you want all the other perks that come with becoming a member, I would truly, truly, truly appreciate your support. It would mean a lot. Like I said, we're just getting started, hoping to do giveaways and all kinds of stuff in the near future. But we need a good, solid base of senators to keep the lights on over here in the Galactic Senate Chamber. So go check that out. If you have questions about it, reach out in all those different avenues I talked about already. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and motion to adjourn the stream. May the force be with you all, always.